All right, listen, let me just say up front. If you've never woken up to the sound of 4 armed men in your own bedroom at 3 a.m., let me tell you, it changes your view of neighborhood safety real quick. These guys wore official-looking HOA vests, flashing what looked like federal badges, and had the nerve to tell me they were there to seize my entire gun collection right then, middle of the night. Neighborhood safety violation. Mr. Morrison, you're non-compliant. Yeah, that happened. My heart was jackhammering, but what really chilled me wasn't the guns. It was the professionalism. Military-grade gear coordinated movement. Since when does the HOA play SWAT at 0 dark 30? Something was off. And right then, boxed into my own bedroom, I realized there's no manual for what you're supposed to do when your sanctuary turns into a battlefield. You ever get that feeling like there's a stranger's fingerprint on your life, but you can't quite prove it? That's how I felt the morning before this all blew up. Walking into my gun room, my little patch of order since Martha passed away 8 months back. Every rifle oiled, every metal perfectly lined up, Martha's father's Purple Heart sitting just so in its case. Except now the case had been nudged just 3 inches to the left, like someone was checking if I'd notice. And my digital Safe 4 failed combination attempts overnight. I've handled firearms for 40 years. When you live alone in a quiet Ohio suburb, grief makes you paranoid about the oddest details. Martha's father's service rifle and medal were more than memorabilia. They were my lifeline to her, to the men in my family who fought for something bigger. If you think I didn't notice when someone started poking at those memories, you don't know what it means to hold on to legacy. Here's where it got strange. That same afternoon, still trying to convince myself I'd just forgotten to lock up, I hear a knock. Clean-cut guy in his 40s. Support our troops ball cap holding a casserole. Mr. Morrison. I'm Eddie Torres, 3 houses down. I heard about Martha. Wanted to stop by, served in Afghanistan myself. Know how tough it gets after losing someone who gets the military thing. After months of people treating me like my sadness was contagious, Eddie's friendliness felt like a life raft. He asked all the right questions about proper firearms storage, about military collectibles, enough that it felt like fate had sent a fellow soldier to keep me grounded. Maybe that's what made me let my guard down. But you know that itch at the back of your neck? The one that says, "This is too convenient." Eddie knew a little too much about the provenance of metals, market values authentication. When I showed him Martha's father's Purple Heart, he didn't just admire it, he inspected it, talking about home security upgrades like he was part salesman, part intelligence officer. Looking back, I see how he probed value, authenticity, security insurance. Friendly, sure, but systematic, like a guy filling out a checklist. At the time, I was just grateful someone cared enough to ask. That night, I checked my security cameras just to put my mind at ease. Instead, I watched footage of someone inside my gun room at 2:17 a.m., 3 days before Eddie's visit, flashlight in hand, photographing the metal, measuring everything, taking shots of my security setup. Not a burglar, an operator. That's when I felt it, the old cold certainty I hadn't felt since my last deployment. Someone had studied me. And whoever they were, they'd weaponized my loneliness. Eddie wormed his way into my days after that. Groceries fixing a leaky faucet, sharing stories about sandstorms and brotherhood, little details you only get from real soldiers. We talked for hours about Martha's father, D-Day, the 116th Infantry at Omaha. He listened like it mattered. I wanted it to be real so badly I missed every sign. But he kept steering the conversation back, security upgrades, alarm systems, cataloging everything for insurance. In hindsight, every helpful suggestion was just building a dossier. One morning, I caught Eddie photographing the Purple Heart close-ups, serial numbers, the works. When I called him on it, he claimed it was for his nephew's school project. Funny thing, my neighbor Mrs. Patterson had just told me Eddie's such a help, especially since he doesn't have any kids. That's when it hit me hard. Every piece clicked. I started replaying our conversations, how he always knew when I was vulnerable, how he'd nudged me into talking about my routines, my security habits. Then Karen Mitchell, HOA president, shows up. You ever seen someone turn a sympathy bouquet into an interrogation? That's Karen, polished, polite, and after a minute of condolences, suddenly concerned about whether I'd properly insured my collection. Subtle but pointed. Some neighbors worry about liability, Frank. Maybe security upgrades would help. Next thing I know, there's an emergency HOA meeting about firearm safety concerns, complete with charts, insurance stats, and Karen framing me as a walking risk to property values. The community split some, worried about their kids, a few old-timers defending my rights. Mrs. Patterson went to bat for me, calling out Karen for targeting a grieving widower. But after the meeting, I caught Karen on her phone. Yes, Mr. Blackwood, the Purple Heart is confirmed authentic, and we can deliver within 60 days if we have the federal paperwork. So not just busybody neighbors. This was an operation. That's when I started fighting back. Army intelligence training, old habits. I began feeding Eddie disinformation. Told him I'd bought a Civil War pistol, planning an appraisal. Karen sent me an HOA violation the next day about unusual vehicle traffic. Faked a security upgrade, got a letter about unapproved modifications. 3 times I baited them. 3 times they responded. That clinched it. Eddie was reporting to Karen, and Karen was working for this Blackwood. Then I found the listening device hidden under Eddie's coffee mug. State-of-the-art surveillance, not something you drop by accident. He'd been recording me for weeks. Everything I said about grief routines, all of it handed over to whoever was orchestrating this. So I dug into Blackwood. Blackwood Federal Acquisitions, a so-called antique dealer with a sketchy website. No real address, no staff, nothing but reviews that read like a PR intern wrote them. Phone calls answered with military lingo, just enough to sound legit, but never real. This wasn't a dealer. This was a pro. And my collection was his target. That night I told Eddie I'd be making major security upgrades, exact times, new codes. My cameras caught 4 men in tactical gear breaching my fence at 2:30 a.m., moving in formation ready to hit hard and fast. What they didn't expect was me waiting with backup from Mrs. Patterson's neighborhood network, and every move caught on tape. My age caught up with me. I'll admit it, my hands shook, my breath caught my backup weapon jammed at the worst moment. But when Mrs. Patterson set off the sirens and lights, it gave me the second I needed to rally. I didn't win because I'm some kind of action hero. I won because I planned and because my community had my back. Cops showed up, caught the whole crew. The fake cops confessed Karen paid them. Eddie gave them my floor plans. Blackwood wanted that Purple Heart for his private Omaha Beach collection. The cops said, "Mr. Morrison, this isn't petty theft. This is interstate organized crime." Turned out Blackwood's been targeting widowed veterans all over, systematically stealing military history. The FBI moved in, uncovered a ring stretching across 5 states, $2 million worth of artifacts gone. Blackwood believed families weren't worthy of keeping these medals. Only his private museum could do justice to their legacy. Karen, driven by desperation, her ex left her, broke her daughter's tuition hanging. She thought she was saving her family. Eddie Blackwood found him on a veterans crisis forum, played to his resentment, and pain made him feel like he mattered, then used him as a tool. 6 months later, Blackwood's in federal prison, 12 years for theft and fraud and for targeting grieving veterans. Karen got 3 years. Her daughter dropped out of med school sick over what her mom had done. Eddie got 2 years plus therapy and VA service. He finally learned his own father's Vietnam heroism had been buried in red tape, not ignored. The attack squad, 18 months each, their private security careers done. The best part, the FBI task force used our evidence to return over 200 stolen pieces to their rightful families. Mrs. Patterson took over as HOA president, first act, a neighborhood rule protecting veterans' collections. Now we have annual fundraisers for military families, kids coming by my gun room every weekend to learn about D-Day and real sacrifice. I even adopted Eddie's abandoned German Shepherd buddy. He's a good boy, keeps me grounded. People ask me if I'd do it again, if I'd risk everything to defend a box of medals and old rifles. The answer's easy. Those pieces aren't just about the past. They're about teaching the future what's worth defending. Grief doesn't make you weak. It just reminds you what matters. And sometimes the most important battles aren't the ones you choose. They're the ones that come for you when you least expect it. So here's my question for you. If someone tried to steal your family's legacy, would you fight back? Or would you let them walk away with the only proof your loved ones ever mattered? Drop your thoughts below, and if you've ever faced something like this, share your story. Justice, right and wrong, grief and honor. Let's hear what you think. And hey, if this story moved you, help me share it. Maybe together, we'll make sure the next predator thinks twice before messing with the wrong neighborhood.